I honored my father at MIT at a show 8 years ago. 10 years ago now? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. No one's going to check. Get on with the story, Dylan. Afterwards, he introduced me. My father was the associate provost of the arts at MIT, or as most people pronounce it, arts at MIT. It was a perfect, let me just parenthetically say, a perfect job for him for 10 years. He was living at the intersection of art and science, and he was very, very happy there. He got the job when someone from the search committee happened to be in England and saw his Cambridge University Physics Department production of The Pirates of Penzance, starring Professor Stephen Hawking as the Pirate King. The singing wasn't great, but the choreography was innovative. I digress. I did this. He was stepping down as associate provost for the arts. He was going back to teaching theater, and I honored him. I hosted the party. I was the MC, and I closed with an improvisational thing that I do, where I take first line, last line from the audience, and I improvise in the styles of various playwrighs. I usually do, Mamet and Shakespeare and Pinter and Chekhov and Tennessee Williams and Sam Shepard and so on. In this case, I did Mamet and Shakespeare, and then my father, who's a playwright, which is, it's not a big market. Alan Brody is not a known name, but in that case, it was the only opportunity I ever had to do that. I made him put scotch through his nose, so I win. Afterwards, there was a party, and I was talking to this man, and he told me I was brilliant, and I said, "Oh, thank you very much." And my father saw me talking to him, and said, "Dylan, this is Alan Guth. I'm glad you met him. I think he's going to win a Nobel Prize in the next few years. He's the man who discovered that the universe is expanding." And I said, "Really?" Because I was funny for 12 minutes, and he said I was brilliant. And my father said, No, I'm serious. And Alan Guth leaned toward me, and in a whisper that was more confessional than conspiratorial, he said, "I didn't discover it. I just proved it mathematically." And I realized that no matter where you are in your career, you overvalue your failures and you undervalue your successes in some way. And for many comics, we live in that place of self-loathing, except in the moment when we are trying to achieve perfection on the stage or when we're writing. Now, in the years since, I've learned to be more forgiving of myself. Also, I've learned to do better work, partly because I'm not stoned all the time, partly because I've allowed myself to expand my voice into something that is far more natural to me as a fully developed human than what the limitations of stand-up were. I have always, since childhood, suffered from comedy Tourette's. The more emotionally engaged I am in any circumstance, the faster and more effortlessly I am writing jokes, sometimes inappropriately. Most people are not interested in hearing my funny observations about the funeral we are attending right now. I'll tell you a story. Last year, 2 dogs of mine died last year. We have 2 new dogs since, so it's fine. But last year I had 2 dogs, Sir Corwin, the beautiful dog-faced dog, Brindle Beast of Silmar, and Lord Buckley Sweet Lips, greatest of all Danemuts, the dinosaur-slaying dog. And one day my wife, whose name escapes me at the moment, called me and said, "You have to get home. I believe Lord Buckley is dead." And I drove home very quickly, very worried about him. But comedy Tourette's had already taken over, and she asked me to call the vet and find out what to do. I called the vet, and vets are not accustomed to this behavior. So I called the vet and I said, "Hi, it's Dylan Brody. Lord Buckley Sweetlips, greatest of all Danemuts, the dinosaur-slaying dog, has died in our upstairs hallway." And the person at the other end of the phone said, "Oh, and you want to know how to dispose of the body?" And I said, "No, I was wondering if we could keep him around and play Weekend at Bernie's." And then there was this silence, because that's not funny to them. They don't understand that this is how I function in the world. Yeah, I want to get rid of the pie. So, well, we could do bring them over. We're open till 11 tonight, and for $100 we can cremate them. For $300 we can cremate them privately and give you the remains. And I said, so for $200 I could get a box of dirt? Long pause, no laughter. And then I got home, and Lord Buckley was dead, and he was a Labrador. He was mostly Labrador. He whatever else he was, he didn't have the retrieving or the swimming genes. So I called him a Labrador Observer. But he was a big dog. I picked him up to carry him downstairs. And as I was coming downstairs with him in my arms, I began to do Cary Grant with Ingrid Bergman at the end of Notorious, where she's poisoned by the Nazis and he's carrying her down the stairs. And my wife knows me. So as I'm getting to the foot of the stairs, holding this beautiful dead dog in my arms, she said, Cary Grant, Notorious? And we took him to the vet, parked elsewhere in the parking lot. You know, it was a big parking lot, strip mall. Everything in California is in a strip mall. And I didn't want to have to carry him again because he was heavy, so I sort of put him over my shoulders. Developed a newfound appreciation for Errol Flynn at the end of Robin Hood, because that's heavy. That's a difficult way to carry an animal. I was afraid that a PETA member might come throw blood on me for wearing a Labrador stole. But because I had had this thought about Robin Hood, by the time I reached the door of the vet's office, I'm in full-on swashbuckler mode. And I just kick open the door and go, ha, 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 ha. And people with sick cats looked at me in horror, and I went to the front desk. I just thunk with the dog, thunk onto the, and I said, it's broken, fix it. And nobody's laughing. It doesn't matter that nobody's laughing. I'm upset, so I'm going to be finding the funny. I'm going to be improvising and finding the funny, and I can't help it. Now, I could not accept this about myself until long after I stopped doing straight ahead 4-to-1 laugh per minute stand-up comedy. During that time when it came up, I felt like I was an ass. Oh my God, I'm awful. Why can I not shut up? Why can I not be a normal human? Once I was able to shift into this sort of storytelling, more contemplative mode of performance, while it remains funny, and I'm still a humorist, but once I gave myself permission not to be doing the 4-to-1 laugh per minute ratio on stage, and allowed myself to acknowledge that this is part of who I am, and the people who know me properly will love me anyway, I became far more facile at recovering from the darkness that comes after a performance. It still comes. You're still shifting from being the brilliant one in the light to being the guy in the hotel room far from home. But I've developed tools to accept who I am. So in answer to your question, yes,